Good evening, I'm the Messianic Manic for Sexual Futurist. Seeing as this is my first video for Sexual Futurist, I thought I'd say something about the future of sexuality, or more specifically, the future of the gay rights movement. One can draw a lot of parallels for the fight for gay rights today and the civil rights movement of the 1960s. Lots of social conservatives would like to deny this, at least in a moral sense. They see the fight against civil rights for gays to be justified, and justified in a way that the fight against civil rights for African Americans was not. But the fact that even mainstream conservatives will agree that the African American civil rights movement in the 60s was a good thing is a reason to be optimistic about the future of the gay rights movement. 50 years ago, people were making the same arguments against black civil rights then as they are against gay civil rights now. Before anti-miscegenation laws, the laws that said you were not allowed to marry outside of your race, were overturned in the US, a judge defending those laws said, "Almighty God created the races, white, black, yellow, Malay, and red, and he placed them on separate continents. The fact that he separated the races shows that he did not intend for the races to mix." Nowadays you hear something similar, although even more poorly reasoned. You hear God created Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Somehow conservatives don't seem to be able to recognize that these two arguments are essentially the same and that they are equally stupid. I feel confident that someday most people will be able to see the latter argument to be just as ridiculous as the former. Another argument that you hear is that gays have the same rights to marriage as straights do. They can both marry people of the opposite gender. But would anybody be taken seriously today if they were to say that laws against marrying outside your own race were not discriminatory because everybody, regardless of their race, has the right to marry inside their own race? If Emma Stone wants to marry Jim Carrey, she's allowed. If I want to marry Jim Carrey and he's willing, I'm not allowed, unless he moves back to Canada. That is a law that discriminates against me based on my sex. And as such, it is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment of the US Constitution. And there has been at least one federal judge who has declared laws against gay marriage to be unconstitutional on precisely those grounds. And people are starting to notice that these arguments used against gay people are just as stupid as the arguments used against black people. Every so often, polls are done that gauge the attitudes American people have towards gays and gay rights. And these polls consistently show that people are getting increasingly more tolerant and more welcoming towards the gay community. In 1982, the American people, when asked, "Do you feel that homosexuality should be considered an acceptable alternative lifestyle or not?" only 34% said acceptable, while 51% said unacceptable. By 2007, 57% said acceptable, and only 40% had answered unacceptable. And you can find these polls on Gallup's website. Lots of people who are antagonistic towards gay rights would like to think that they could turn back this progress, but they have a bit of a demographics problem. When you break these survey answers down by age group, the younger people are, the more likely they are to sympathize with gay rights issues. As the older generations continue to pass on, so will their homophobic beliefs. Now you may see this trend slow down a little bit as lifespans grow longer and fecundity rates continue to fall, but it's highly unlikely that you would ever see it go into reverse. Because as legal gay marriage becomes more prevalent state to state, even older people will begin to realize that civilization is not falling apart as a consequence. This is a genie that cannot be put back in a bottle. I'm the Messianic Manic, and this is Sexual Futurist.